the heart and soul behind every business. Stories. Welcome to Business Story of the Week, hosted by me, Joshua Laurie. From setbacks to comebacks, from tragedies to triumphs, we inspire entrepreneurs through conversations that matter. Witness the magic that turns dreams into reality. Whether it's your career, business, or life, your success is always one story away. This is Business Story of the Week.
Hey everyone, Christoph Trappe here. Welcome to this week's Business Story of the Week.
All right, fantastic. That is Christoph, our guest for today, and I am your host, Joshua. And today's question is, can storytelling transform a business's bottom line? Well, maybe a lot more than that, and grow everything, grow your career, grow all of that. Our guest for today, Christoph, is the perfect guest to answer that question and a lot more. Christoph Trappe is a globally known content marketer who helps companies move their marketing content from happening to performing. I love that, by the way. He authored a series of marketing strategy books, including Is Marketing a Good Career? And is currently content director at growth marketing agency called Grow Getter. I love that. Christoph, thank you for coming on the show. I'm excited to talk about what you do. How are you doing?
Doing great, Joshua. Hey, thanks for having me. Let's get after it, right?
Wow, I love that. Let's get after it. That's it.
Friend.
That's it right. That came out of nowhere and I loved it so much. I mean, that's it right there. Let's get after it. But Christoph, I always start the show and I really want to get into it. But before I do, my question always is, what was the young Christoph like? Did the young Christoph always know that he was going to get into marketing?
Well, so it's an interesting answer because if you, depending on where you just went with that question, so if you would have said, was the young Christoph always going to go into storytelling? The answer would have been yes. But since the question was, would the young Christoph ever thought he went into marketing? Absolutely not. 100% no. We stumble into things in our youth. And I, preparing to play football, go to the gym in Germany. And there was always this guy, and he was like, he had all the best stories. And I'm like, how in the world do you know all this stuff? And he was a journalist, right? Back then, mid-90s, early 90s, I guess, actually, a newspaper reporter. And I was like, maybe I should go into journalism. And, everything has kind of evolved since. So, what I do today is very similar to what I did as a journalist, just a very different goal, way more strategic, really. Instead of, you're not just writing articles, you're not just doing podcasts, but storytelling, always, marketing, probably not, like the last 15 years, roughly.
But Christoph, the young Christoph, must have always been a go-getter.
Well, a grow-getter, not a go-getter, but a grow-getter for sure.
A grow-getter,
so yeah,
sure.
we can't totally milk this one,
of course,
until we're blue in the face, no doubt.
All right. Okay. Well, storytelling, marketing. Christoph, where do you think is the balance in all of this? Where do you think it always intersects, or is it always overlap? You said you always loved storytelling. You always were a storyteller. Were there pivotal moments in your life where you said, like, this is it, I just love telling stories? But then what was that pivotal moment also where this intersected and you said, wow, I'm going to be a marketer as well?
Yeah, I'm not even sure I always thought of it as storytelling. I think that's kind of been the buzzword the last, 15, 18 years or something. But the concept of, here's something that's happening, here's how you share that with the audience as a reporter, right? I mean, it's ultimately storytelling, not fiction writing, but like, how do you share it in a way that people pay attention? And back in the day, there was a newspaper, right? People read the newspaper or they didn't. And many people did. So that was the only channel. Today, there's all these other channels. So you have to be even better at telling those stories. And then, I guess 2010, roughly, I moved officially into marketing when I worked at United Way as a VP of Communications and Innovation, I guess officially was the title. And it just kind of happened, like I think a lot of journalists, even back in those days, they move from journalism to marketing or PR or something like that. Sometimes the decision is financial, sometimes it's schedule wise, right? Journalists sometimes have horrible schedules. And so it just kind of happened. And then I think the Content Marketing Institute kind of jumped up at the same time. So I got involved with that and, you know, uh, figured out how to move journalistic skills to marketing teams. And that's really probably another reason why the answer to, did you ever
Right.
think you would be a marketer
Right.
as a youth? Why the answer cannot be yes, because in the
Mm.
early 90s, marketing was completely different
Mm.
from what it
Mhm.
is today.
Yeah,
Like completely, right? Like, I mean,
I can
even
imagine.
journalism, but even if you think about journalism, it's still relative, like what you do as a journalist is kind of the
It's
same, but what
precisely.
marketers do, completely different. Like it's
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
has completely evolved, right?
Absolutely. I love that because like you said, always been a storyteller. So it makes sense you got into journalism, right? Because you want to be telling those stories. But the marketing aspect of it has grown, or the current, what do you call this? The culture of content, right? Like the where content has become. And I understand that this, in one of your philosophies in content performance, you talk about this and embracing a content performance culture. Could you talk to us a little bit about this and why these are, our content teams should know their personas, and what is really behind this kind of philosophy that you employ, especially at GrowGetter?
I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't know who you're creating content for, like, how do you know you're creating the right content?
That's it.
Like I'm writing an article currently on a topic, and it's about like this very specific topic, and a lot of articles, they start with a definition, like what is that thing, because they
Mm,
want to rank for that in search. I want to
mhm.
rank in search too. I'm the first person to go, hey, what are the keywords, blah blah blah. But the audience, they
Right.
know what that is. They don't need a
Exactly.
definition. Like,
Yes.
in
Yes.
fact, if they
Yes.
would find that article and they would see what's the definition of XYZ, they're like,
Wow.
this is total bogus. Like, you're not experts. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we know what it
Yeah.
is. Like, are you talking to us? So you have to know who you're creating content for. And at the end of the day, you have to know how your content performs. And it's
Right.
kind of interesting on how do you actually do that. I'm really more on the content creation side.
Interesting.
I look at numbers, but don't
Yeah.
overthink them. Especially with SEO, it kind of takes a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Podcasting, if you do a podcast, it takes
Takes
time.
time.
If you just
Yeah.
do a traditional podcast, that
Yes.
is why I'm a big fan of live streaming podcasts. I hope, Joshua, in a year or so, um, you'll live stream your show and get even more
Oh,
listeners and viewers to LinkedIn.
interesting.
um, and that's an easy way for people to kind of shortcut the audience, growing the audience model, right? Because they have an audience on LinkedIn, for
Mhm,
example, or wherever.
mhm.
And if they live stream their podcast, you reach more people. Those people, you have no idea if they would listen on Apple, like no idea, right? But they might listen there. So an
Wow.
easy way to do it. But you have to look at the numbers. You have to know who you're trying to target, and then like what are the goals, and
Mhm.
depending on what the goals are, the strategies can differ, right? So
I
if it's
love that.
SEO, and honestly, any article on your website needs to be
Mhm,
optimized for SEO. I don't care if that's even the goal or not,
mhm.
but at least it has to use some of the right terminology. But you have to know what you're trying to achieve, why you're trying to do it, where it fits in the
Mhm.
funnel. Andy Crestodina says, I think it was 80% of searches are informational, not
Right.
transactional. And then like
Oh, of course.
10% are, they want to buy stuff.
Mhm,
So even though we all want to sell stuff, you still have to hit those 80%. Like you have to
mhm,
get them in somewhere, right? You have to
mhm.
start. So the only way to do that as a content person is you have to understand the numbers, you have to understand what's good, what's bad, and then how do you keep moving content on them.
I love that. First off, that really brought this question on me up in my mind right away, because sometimes, there's this saying that there's this kind of like principle where just get started, just put it out there, and then you find out along the way. But you also said like it's nice to see who you're targeting, who you're creating content for. What is your opinion about the approach where throw everything at the wall, find out what sticks, and then go from there, as opposed to like going down a more logical path? What would be your opinion differing on both approaches?
So the way you kind of present that is it's kind of either or, right? And I think a lot
Hmm.
of people do that because um, because we want the answer, right? Like, is it
Right.
A or is it B? And it's not,
Precisely.
it cannot be A point B or something, right?
Yeah.
So James Clear in Atomic Habits actually shared this example. He said,
Right.
um, this group of people are told to get the perfect picture, but they can only come back with one picture. So, right, photo or whatever. So
Okay.
they go do that. And then this other group is told, shoot as many pictures and as many photos as you want.
Okay.
Like, go ahead, just go. And
Mhm.
here's what we're trying to do. And well, guess who had the closest to perfect picture? The group that just shot and shot and shot and shot. And, and the one that came back with just one thing, they're so focused on like perfection. First of all, perfection is not even a thing, right? I'll give you an
Okay.
example. So
Okay. Please.
this has been bothering me this whole show back here on video. You can see it. So this is broken. And I just
Okay.
noticed this, like
Okay.
behind me, right? The desk.
Mhm.
And I'm like, in a perfect world, we would fix that and start over. But you and I are busy. We don't care. Now
Mm.
people know it's broken. And I looked at it a
Mm.
couple of times, like, what's going on back there? Who cares? It will not impact the performance of this episode
I
one
love
bit.
that.
I just noticed it. I'm going to throw it out in a little bit when I have time. But so you want to create,
Mhm.
you want to get on the schedule, but you don't just want to throw stuff at the wall. And so what
Wow.
I mean by that is, this is what you're trying to accomplish. Here's what you're trying to do. And then you create within those boundaries. And what that means
Ah.
is that you're probably creating a lot, not just once a quarter. So if you're trying to get the perfect blog post once a quarter, you're already on the wrong track. The
Mm.
perfect podcast episode once a quarter, you're already on the wrong track. Like,
Right.
so you have to find the right mix. Like what you said is actually not like incorrect, but you have to be like, this is what we're trying to do. This is kind of the framework, roughly. Here's who we're
Right.
trying to talk to, and then go create and
I love that.
forget about perfection. It's not a
Mm.
thing. Plus, who decides what's perfect, anyways? Are you
I
the
love
judge
that.
of perfect because you're my boss? Who? How do they
Right.
know?
Mhm.
Audience, right? So
Mhm.
that's why you have to publish within that framework. And then, oh, that's a consultant term, but you know what I mean? Like within those boundaries, and then see what works and see what doesn't. If you just
Wow.
throw stuff at the wall without that, here's what happens.
Right.
At some point, you will start ranking for some totally unrelated crap on your website. And you're like, wow, we have all this traffic, but it's completely irrelevant. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen it in healthcare. When I was worked in healthcare, this
Okay.
company,
Uh-huh.
they ranked for like breast cancer, but they had
Hmm.
nothing to do with breast cancer. But they wrote about
Interesting.
Breast Cancer Awareness Month or something. So what's the point? Who cares?
What?
Doesn't do anything. I mean,
Uh-huh.
well, I shouldn't say it like that. Every piece that drives SEO traffic helps somewhat with
Of
SEO for
course.
the whole page,
Of course.
but it's completely the wrong audience, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
it
Yes.
helps like a little bit, but if you're going to spend time and effort on creating content, you might as well try to be as strategic as you can be.
I see. I see. Would you say it's different or the same SEO or content?
The
Mm.
same, what was the first word?
I'm sorry. Would you say that it would be the same approach? Would you say the same thing about, because you mentioned you use SEO as an example a lot just now. Would you say it's the same for content?
I think it's the same everywhere. I mean, so when I say SEO, it's always in the context of content of articles.
Yes,
I'm
of
not talking
course.
about technical SEO. Yes, that affects everything,
Mhm.
but like the
Video
content SEO,
content,
right?
same.
Everything. I mean,
Mm.
video. And by the way, don't get me started on video content, right? I mean, you're doing a podcast. I listen to your podcast on the audio only version on Apple, but you
Mm,
have video,
mm,
right? You put it on
mhm.
YouTube, maybe on Spotify. If you're not there yet, Spotify
Mm.
now has video. So
Yes.
I thought it was like 250,000 video podcasts on
Mm,
Spotify now. So that's kind of
mhm.
awesome how that's
Pretty
growing.
cool. Yeah.
But you have to find that right balance. And if you look, so let's pick
Mm.
on video for a second.
Yes.
If you look at some of the highest performing TikTok creators, YouTube creators, whatever,
Mhm.
they create a decent amount of video content. They don't just publish once a quarter, right? They publish all the time, sometimes too much. So my point is, you have to figure out that cadence. You have to keep getting stuff out there, and you
Sit.
have to repurpose things. So what
Yes.
I do with my show, the Business Storytelling Show, I live stream it. It goes to podcasts. I use Opus Clips to hack up clips. Then I put up the clips completely unrelated. Like I don't like sometimes I don't even link to the podcast. I just like, here's an interesting quote. Here's whatever. And then I reuse it. And then a lot of times I write articles from the show. There's typically one in there, sometimes two. My show is 24 minutes, which is pretty quick. But if you have like a 45-minute, hour-long show, I mean, sometimes you can get like 3 articles out of that content without doing any other research, you know. So get the most out of what you have.
I love that. I love that. And I love that you also are approaching, I ask, throw on the wall or be logical about it. It's almost like you're in between because you also talk about Opus clips, hacking up clips in there. Interesting. Doesn't even link to the whole video, but you just throw it up in there and it'll get returns. I mean, and that is my experience as well. And something that I advise to my other friends as well, to my other content creators that I know. You mentioned the thing in your background, it's broken. You can't get rid of it right now. But also another thing I noticed there are what? Your football helmets on there. There's a football gear on there. You must be, I understand you're a sports buff yourself. Let's go. Is that yours?
That is mine. Look, game
All right,
worn.
let's go.
Look, you can actually see some of the
That's it.
the dents.
All right.
So it's I mean, this is like pretty old. It's actually so heavy I wouldn't even want to wear it today. But
oh my.
I know that wasn't your question, but yes, that's what that is.
I almost wanted to ask you to wear it, but Christoph, here's the thing. No. Here's the thing. I wanted you to be able to relate it a little bit. How has leading a content team or actually strategizing for your clients, for the things that you do at GrowGetter and your team, how has strategizing content been similar? Is it similar at all to coaching a sports team or putting together a sports team? How it's similar would they be?
Yeah, well, I never coach a sports team, but just being an athlete,
Yes.
the one thing I use and I've used for many years at Staymates, MetTouch, really anywhere, is it's a next play mentality, right? So back in the day, oh, I had a typo, like, oh, I'm sorry, I made a typo. Oh, it's like it's a damn typo. Like, hopefully that's not a work, but maybe it is. We can or put the explicit on. So, but like people overthink it. It's like over-index, right? So like now next play. So what does Patrick Mahomes? What does he do with the Chiefs? Right when he has a bad play, turns around, he runs another play. What does he do when he has a good play? Turns around, runs another play. Like it never stops. Like the next play mentality. So I think sports teach you that. Sports also teach you coachability. Now, coachability in corporate America is a little bit different because just because somebody is in the role of authority doesn't mean they should be coaching anybody, right? Because they may not have a clue. I guess your football coach may not have had a clue either. But if you play at that high of a level, certainly they do, or they have their own philosophy or whatnot. But you have to be coachable. You have to think about what to do differently, how to do it, how to grow. Somebody asked me, I don't know, a little while ago here, and they said, "Have you ever failed?" And I say, "I fail all the time, like daily, right? Like all the time." And like they're not like huge failures. They're not like my life is over failure, but they're like, "Oh, that didn't work. Shoot, whatever." Like there's always something that could be done better, that you could improve on, that you can learn from. Technology changes stuff all the time, right? So for example, as I was looking at today's recording, I was like, hold on a second, are we doing video or not? Because so the first thing that came to my mind is, oh, Riverside. That's just a traditional podcaster. Right. But Riverside does video too now, right? Yes, so like my mindset, like I don't use Riverside too often, but like back in the day, Riverside is like one of the OGs when it comes to podcasting. But they do video. Like you can upload this entire thing and rebroadcast it like a live stream. I don't know if
they do live stream too. Yeah, Riverside does live stream now.
So you can even do live stream. So it's like, so my point is, for me to actually keep track of every feature of every platform of everything a content creator does, it's almost impossible. Right? So like you have these mental timelines. At one point, this is what Riverside does. Okay, Riverside also does this now. Okay, and like you just have to evolve. You just have to kind of go with it and then move forward.
I love that. First off, Christoph, this is in part of your philosophy. Next play mentality is part of your content philosophy and what you do and how you execute everything. Another part of your philosophy is right players in the right seats. Basically, having the right people on your right team. How have this philosophy been part of your approach for a long time? How long has it been part of your approach for a long time? And what were the moments in putting together Grow Getter and your team? When did it become apparent that this was need to be part of anybody's mentality or anybody's philosophy?
I mean, that's my opinion for sure. But it's probably been it's been for a long time. But probably the first time I wrote it down was maybe like, I don't know, 8 years ago, 10 years ago.
Wow.
And then, so it's been written down for a little while. But I think what's important about the right seed, right players is there. First of all, you have different teams, right? Like every content team is different. Every
Yeah.
marketing team is different. It's annoying at the same time as it's kind of could be cool, depending if you can find your
Yeah.
niche.
Mhm.
But if a content team, so I'll give you this example. So one time
Please.
I interviewed for this role, and I don't remember what it was. I think it was like VP of content or
Okay.
something like that.
Mhm.
And a VP of content, like I'm not even a VP of content at GrowGetter, and I have a team at GrowGetter, right? And that's just not the title. So for that role, the VP of content, what they actually needed was a designer,
Okay. All right. Wow.
right?
Okay.
And I'm like, and maybe I think they hired like a person that could do photography, but that really her foundational skill was design.
Design.
I love
Yes.
designers. I need them. We have a great one at GrowGetter, but like I'm not the right person for that role at all. Nowhere near, right? So my point is the way these titles are evolving, like
Yes.
people like
Yeah.
companies kind of make it up a little bit as they go.
Yeah. Yeah.
and
That is true.
and then everybody has to figure out what it is that they're actually looking for.
Yes.
So I would have been the wrong person in that seat,
Yes.
right? Now, a VP of content at a company where like you lead a content team, you like have maybe even you have managers, whatever, and
Yeah.
you're trying to level up content, I totally could do that. And that's what a lot of companies see as a VP of content. Now, there's some
Mhm.
companies,
Mhm.
VP of content has only freelancers and they're
Yeah.
basically a project manager.
Mhm.
Would I be the
Mhm.
right person in that role? I probably
Mm.
could do it, but
Yeah.
like I would not enjoy it because
Right.
I'm not a project manager.
Mhm.
So it's really important to figure out what are your core skills, what are you trying to do, and then what's the right team. When I talk in is marketing a good career, so the answer is it can be if you have the right skills and if you find the right team.
I
And if
love
you
that.
find the wrong team, it's a horrible career. And if you have the wrong skills for that team,
Mhm.
it's, oh my God, you think you're a loser, basically, even though you're not. You're just on the
Exactly.
wrong
I
team. You're
know.
just in the wrong seat,
Oh
you
my
know?
gosh. Oh my god. At the right seat too. I love that. And by the way, feeling like a loser just because you're on the wrong seat, so relatable. Right?
And
Like
it sucks.
it sucks because people, I'm sure a lot of our audience listeners would feel like, "Parang, I'm not stupid, but it makes you feel like you're dumb because just because you're on the wrong seat. And I love that because you can rearrange the seat, rename the seat. It's not just having the right person, but having the right seat, the proper term, the proper role for them, the proper SOPs for them. I love that concept, by the way. And of course, the website is your website in particular is christophtrappe.com. I invite our audience and listeners to check that out. But also, your team, your company is called Grow Getter. Christoph, talk to us a little bit about that. Tell us the audience what do you do with Grow Getter, and what else can we where else can we learn more about you?
Yeah, ChristopHTrap.com. I share all the content tips that come to my mind. Anything from why is my why is something not working on my AirPods to which keyboard to use when creating content. Trust me, there's so many options. And GrowGetter is we're a growth marketing firm in the market research space.
Mhm.
So very specific, really. The two co-founders came out of that industry, and then I've worked with one of the co-founders for the last few years at a software company. So my background, I've been in that industry for a few years now as well, and that's
Mhm.
basically who we work with. Certainly we believe our experience can help them create better marketing, specifically my team, we work on their content strategy, which is anything from articles, blog posts, earned
Yes.
media, guest blogging, I guess guest
Mhm.
posting might be a better term,
Mm.
and those kind of
Okay.
things. So that's GrowGetter.io, and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Make sure you tell me you heard me on this show.
Let's
And
go.
don't send me some lame message.
Or tell them you met Christoph, talked about football, talked about his broken thing behind him, and all this the funny
It's now
anecdotes.
fixed. See, I
It
fixed
is
it.
now fixed. That's right. We can't even see it anymore. But let me connect with him. Make sure you let him know that you found him in here. Christoph, thank you so much. Of course, you are also on the other socials. Where can we find you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is a big one. Threads everywhere. Just search for Christoph Trappe. You
All right,
can probably.
fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, ChristopHTrappe.com, Getter.io. Go check out Christoph. Get connected with him. Christoph, thank you so much for being on the show. I truly enjoyed it. For some reason, I laughed at everything you were saying. I'm laughing too much on this one. Thank you so much.
Hopefully in a good way.
Well, definitely in a good way. I loved all the concept and the perspective. Christoph, you've been great, amazing. I love all the learnings. And to all our audience and listeners out there, thank you for watching the episode. Christoph, anyone last thing you'd like to tell them? Take us home.
Thanks for joining us. This was the business story of the week. Create content that matters and move to performance and not just happening. Thanks for joining us.
That's it. Performance not happening. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching the episode. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. We will see you on the next one. Bye bye.
All right, so here's the thing. We try to get a little bit better every day, but we can't do it without you. So if you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe below. And if you have any comments, just leave them in the space under.